Welcome to the first video having to do with uh, Christian holy nakedness. Uh, Wanted to make these for a while now, and it's about time to explain some of what we're showing on the blog known as Happy Naked Christian and Holy Nakedness, both of which are Tumblr blogs. First off, how can you be a Christian and not wear clothes? Well, it's simple. You become a Christian and you take your clothes off. But I'm thinking you want more than that. So we've got to start with the beginning. God created man and woman, male and female created he them, it says in Genesis chapter 1, and he created them in a perfect paradise, and God's perfect paradise reflected God's perfect plan. What was God's perfect plan? For nature to be perfect, duh, and for men and women to be without clothing. The way that he made them was in their most perfect state, aka without clothing, period. God declared them on day 6, when he created man, male and female in his image, to be, quote, very good. How God views things does not change. He called it very good, and the naked human form is still very good. When you go to chapter 3 and look at the fall, clothing was put on by Adam and Eve out of shame for what they had done. God, rather than letting them cover themselves with fig leaves, sacrificed an innocent animal because of the sin that Adam and Eve committed, and let them cover themselves with that to show their shame, not by their nakedness, but show their shame in that they had to be covered. However, when he went over the curse, now as a result of their sin, with all the things that were mentioned, quote, you have to wear clothes now, unquote, was not one of the curses. The ground was cursed. The environment was cursed. But they were not required to wear clothing. That was something man did for himself. And God allowed as a compensation, if you will, for our own shame. God still looks at the naked human body as very good. Another thing, since God cannot change, is that he commanded the prophet Isaiah in Isaiah chapter 20. Take a look at Isaiah 20. Isaiah went naked and barefoot for 3 years. Now, whether that was when he preached over 3 years or for 3 straight years constantly, which with the weather and winters there was probably not the case, but he had him go naked and barefoot. And before some people say, oh no, that means he was just in his undergarments, the word for naked there in Hebrew is the same as the word naked in the Garden of Eden, describing Adam and Eve. The only reason some people would say, oh, that means just underwear, is they go in with the presupposition that, well, it couldn't mean totally naked like it did in Genesis, because then, well, shoot, that would mean he wasn't wearing any clothes. They're reading their own presupposition into the text. The text says naked and barefoot, and makes no sense if he was just in his undergarment for what he was doing. So, yeah, he was naked. People assume that when Saul was naked, that he was with the prophets, which implies that the prophets, when they prophesied, did so naked in King Saul's day. Micah says the same thing, that he would make himself naked while he was prophesying. Move to the New Testament. Obviously, Jesus was born naked, just like everybody else. He was baptized naked because all the Jewish ritual washings were done naked. So he was baptized naked in the Jordan. So all your artwork about his baptism in the Jordan is probably wrong, unless you go to first century artwork, which shows him naked in the river. He was crucified naked. They took all of his clothes. And it says in Hebrews that he bore our shame. He despised our shame and crushed it on the cross. He was wrapped in burial clothes. And then when he was resurrected, Peter and John found all the clothes that were put on him on the ground inside the tomb, and wrapped up where his body had been laid inside the tomb. And he was resurrected naked. When Mary Magdalene saw him after his resurrection, what did she assume? She assumed he was the gardener. Well, aha, they say. That must mean that he had clothing on, because she thought he was the gardener. Except back in those days, when clothes were very expensive and the weather very hot, and clothing had to be saved from wear and tear because most people couldn't afford to buy new clothes, Gardeners did their work naked. Why else would she assume he was the gardener and not something else? Anything else? She assumed he was the gardener because gardeners, she knew, would be working without clothing on. So, nice try. So, there you have it. Plus, one other little thing in Romans 5, Jesus is referred to as the second Adam, and because he was redeeming us from the curse and undoing what the first Adam had done. And our second Adam died naked on a tree and restored unto us the privilege of being naked and unashamed before God again. So now we can be naked and unashamed again before God because our relationship with God has been restored. So, does that mean go naked everywhere? Of course not. But it means you're free to be unashamed, naked, and you're bearing witness to God that you are bearing His image. Only the enemy, Satan himself, would tell us to cover the image of God because he hates the image of God and wants it to be covered. Well, you can't glorify God with your body, 1 Corinthians 6:20, by covering the body up. We bear witness to Him, and our motto, He died naked for me, I'll live naked for Him, comes from that. Because He has purchased, by the price of His own blood on the cross, the privilege of being naked and unashamed before God again. So exercise that. Don't be ashamed of your body. Only Satan would try and make showing of your body and the image of God that it bears a crime. So, if you have any input on this, and you think, and your knee-jerk reaction is, well, that's just ungodly, and you have no scripture to back it up, don't bother responding. But if you have honest inquiry, please leave your comments and have a great day. Go be naked and unashamed.